The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
The blockbuster trade, more time to think about it. I've watched more film, what it actually means for the Steelers.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast.
The Steelers have traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick and a 2027 fifth-round pick, not a 2026 fifth-round pick, so this is 2 years down the line. And in return, they have gotten back Jalen Ramsey, former All-Pro cornerback, Jonnu Smith, Pro Bowl tight end from this last season, and a 2027 seventh-round pick. So a pick swap, basically, for Jonnu Smith and a straight-up for Jalen Ramsey and Minkah Fitzpatrick. Alan, before we get into the particulars of this, your thoughts on the trade itself and what it does for the Steelers?
Well, they're getting a large infusion of talent, and basically, I mean, in my eyes, trading nothing for Jonnu Smith. I mean, a 2-year out, fifth for a seventh is barely rates. They had an extra fifth from the Pickens trade as well. So it really means basically nothing. I think that's huge. It's huge for an offense that has big problems with the number of pass catchers in a unit that's probably going to want to throw the ball more with Aaron Rodgers this year. It will not wave away their wide receiver 2 problem. But
agreed.
It will sort of lessen the impact a little bit of how much that problem can hurt them, I think. And then, Ramsey versus Fitzpatrick is interesting. 2 players on the downhill of their career, 130, 128. I think Fitzpatrick is interesting because I haven't seen a physical decline. He just hasn't played as well. But if you compare their play over the last couple of years, I think Ramsey's been better. It's going to look bad for the Steelers if Fitzpatrick goes to Miami and suddenly goes back to being the all-pro version of himself.
Very true.
But I think if you just look at the players they've been, Ramsey has been the better and more valuable player.
I agree in the sense the last couple of years. I think that's you can look at that, especially Ramsey creates turnovers. He also hasn't gotten picked on in Miami. He's allowed a few touchdowns, and when I look through the tape, a lot of those touchdowns that were attributed to him were oftentimes him playing underneath coverage and expecting safety help, and the safety just being nowhere to be found. And after the play, he just looks at the guy like, "Come on!" And so I thought that was a little interesting. So I hear you on that. I want to push back on this notion that we've seen across national media, and I get it because it's the popular thing to do. It's an easy talking point, but this notion that this move and the getting Aaron Rodgers and trading for DK Metcalf, that the Steelers are now quote unquote all in on the season. The Steelers do want to win. Like, there's no doubt in my mind they want to win this season, and but just as much as they always want to win every season, I don't think anything's changed there. But where people are saying all in to me does not mean just making something. They would be all in if they traded a second-round pick or a third-round pick for Jalen Ramsey and instead of Minkah Fitzpatrick. And now Minkah Fitzpatrick was still with the team. And if they didn't get a third-round pick for George Pickens if he was still on the team, all in would be saying, hey, we're amassing every piece of talent for right now, and we are saying we don't care about the 2026 NFL draft. We don't care about trading up for a quarterback next year. It is win now with Aaron Rodgers. That would be all in. But that's not what they've done. When you look at what they've done when you look at the additions of the older players they've brought in, Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf, Darius Slay, Jalen Ramsey, Jonnu Smith, all those players, they gave up a 2025 second round pick. They gave up Minkah Fitzpatrick, and they gave a 2027 fifth round pick. And they got a pick back for that. And in giving away George Pickens, they got back a third-round pick for 2026. That is not all in on the 2025 season. All in would be the way the Rams approached their era in the NFL. When you look back at their history, the Rams were a team that when you go back and you look at how they handled the draft, for 7 straight years, the Rams did not have a first-round pick. That is going all in. And they cashed in. Aaron Donald got a Super Bowl ring. Matt Stafford came to town. That that is going all in. But to me, Alan, I don't think it's that. Am I on? Do you agree with me here? Or do you feel like this is them putting all their chips on the table?
I mean, that's pretty easy, Chris. How many contracts did the Steelers restructure, pushing money out beyond the 2025 season this offseason?
None.
How many free agent contracts did the Steelers sign containing void years to artificially reduce the current cap hit at the expense of the future cap hit?
None.
How many future draft picks did they trade away this offseason for a player for this year?
None.
I mean, okay, they're not all in. Like, you play poker, all in is all the chips.
All my chips.
Those are all chips
exactly.
that Omar Khan is holding on to, saying, okay, we want to win. And we're doing everything we can to win. The Steelers are doing everything they can to win without taking away from the future. Yeah. That's where they're doing everything they can to win without taking away from the future. And if you follow the NFL, you know the teams that are really doing everything they can to win are like, forget the future. You mentioned Rams and all the picks. How about the Eagles and the way they've leveraged void years to way overspend the cap right now? You got to pay the piper eventually. It's not like they can do that forever. They're picking right now is their time to win. The Steelers did that for years with the contract restructure.
That's where I was going to go to next.
Kick the can down the road, okay? They're not doing any of those things, so they cannot be all in. I think part of the problem is that people don't understand the Steelers are not playing a binary game. People have it in their mind that either you are doing everything you're doing to try to win or you should be tanking. And that is not who they are, and that's not what they're all about. They're building this team. They're in the middle of a massive rebuild.
Yes.
Yeah, they got some older pieces. But the idea is when this team wins a Super Bowl, the core of this team is going to be Zach Frazier and Keanu Benton and Broderick Jones and Derek Harmon, and guys like Slay and Ramsey are probably not going to be around. Would they like to win a Super Bowl this year? Sure. Is that realistic? Probably not. I mean, despite everything they've done, and I think that's the other part of this. The other part of this is that there have been times in NFL history and maybe even this year in the NFL in a certain situation where you could look at this Steelers team and say, yes, that would be a good bet to go all in. But everything they've done, all these moves that have everybody saying they're going all in, they're still got the third best odds to win the AFC North. They still, and that doesn't even include talking about Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes trying to get out of the AFC. It's just the situation is Omar is holding them chips because he's got a pair of sevens. Exactly. It's a good hand, but it's not the best. And he knows the guy over there has got aces. Right? So just hang on and save your chips for the right time, and it's not just yet.
Pay that man here the money. But in all seriousness, there's my Rounders joke. But I'm right with you here. Now, here's the thing. I will agree. I do say this. Omar Khan is switching some things up. Like, this man is turning over the roster every single year. So, like, this will be his fifth straight year with a new quarterback starting at the quarterback position. Granted, I don't think it was him that started within 2021. He wasn't officially GM, but still, it's the team's fifth straight year of Ben Roethlisberger, Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, Justin Fields, and now it will be Aaron Rodgers. 5 straight years of a different quarterback starting at the beginning of the season for your team. And you look at all the other turnover that they have gone through just to try to reshuffle things, get the right guys in, get the wrong guys out, and make things happen. Omar Khan's not sitting on his hands. So he's definitely being aggressive, but aggressive is not the same as, like you're saying, all in. I 1,000% agree with you. Aggressive would be if we wake up 9 a.m. tomorrow, we did on Monday, or if you're watching this Tuesday, we wake up today, and all of a sudden Terry McLaurin is a Pittsburgh Steeler for a second-round pick. They're like, okay, they are all in now. Like, this is all in. They're giving away top picks for really, really good players to win right now. Then I would be there, but that's not what they're doing. So we're agreed on that. But let's talk about next the impact of how this works on the defense, because essentially they have swapped a former All-Pro safety for a former All-Pro cornerback.
Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
Jalen Ramsey, gone. Jonnu Smith, gone. Minkah Fitzpatrick, welcome back.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast.
This deal has a number of significant layers interwoven on top of each other in something that comes across as more of an NBA trade than any NBA trade that I can remember seeing in the last few years. I mean, the layers here are insane. It gets dropped a couple hours ago, and I waited because I wanted to get as many of the finer details as I possibly could. Jalen Ramsey being traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Okay. Wonder what we got. Oh, Jalen Ramsey's getting a pay raise and going to Pittsburgh. Oh, okay. It is what it is. I'm not surprised. 3 raises in 3 years for Jalen. What are they getting back? Minkah Fitzpatrick coming back as a part of the deal. It's a player-for-player swap. You say, wow, that's really rare. The irony there is incredible. You've traded a disgruntled Miami Dolphins defensive back for a former disgruntled Miami Dolphins defensive back. Then Jonnu Smith is announced to be a part of a trade with a pick swap with Pittsburgh. And then it, lo and behold, is all of these things in one massive asteroid of a rock that was thrown at the NFL world on Monday, June 30th. So the full terms of the trade are as such. The Dolphins are trading Jalen Ramsey, tight end Jonnu Smith, and a 2027 7th-round draft choice. And in return are bringing back safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. Sounds familiar. And a 2027 5th-round draft choice. So you can, however you want to rebundle the assets. If it's Ramsey for Minkah, straight up flip, and then Jonnu and a 7 for a 5, or however you want to do the mental gymnastics in your head. What it really boils down to is this. For Pittsburgh, it's pretty straightforward, right? Y'all are all in, right? Black and yellow is gas pedal to the floor with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback and trading for DK Metcalf and now acquiring Jonnu Smith and Jalen Ramsey in one fell swoop. For Miami, it's the latest affirmation in my mind of how the Dolphins have gone about their business this offseason. Everything that they've done, they're giving themselves the opportunity to compete. But in the grand scheme of things, they're playing the long and the short game simultaneously. So the return of Minkah Fitzpatrick, and we're going to talk about Minkah and his role here in this Dolphins secondary, gives you a chance to compete in the here and now. But the financial implications of the trade is where the Dolphins are playing the long game. They're pooling assets. They're choosing not to pay late-stage players big-time money. And Jonnu Smith got a pay raise today, by the way. He went from making $4 million to $12 million on his 1 year left on his contract. So Pittsburgh gave him $12 million. And Jonnu was scheduled to make just over $4 in Miami this year. So that's another part of this, right? There's another layer to this potpourri of team building ideologies all happening at the same time. The Dolphins paid $3 million of Jalen Ramsey's salary. So the $21.5 million, he ends up getting a raise to 26.6 is the new compensation for Jalen Ramsey. Miami is paying $3 million of his outstanding balance to facilitate the trade. That's half of what I thought they were going to trade in a vacuum of Ramsey of a pick, right? And they bring back Minkah Fitzpatrick, at 15.5. But they offload the 21 that was scheduled for Jalen Ramsey. The 4 that was scheduled for Jonnu Smith is 25 minus $3 million that they have to pay is 22. I'm not a math guy, but I can pull that one off. So 22, and they're bringing back 22 and change, and they're bringing back 15.5. So the Dolphins, from a cash spend perspective, are saving about $7 million in cash. What do you do with that $7 million? I would assume you're looking at veteran cornerbacks now. It's been reported, I believe Omar Kelly's reported, the Dolphins are calling around about tight ends, looking for another trade opportunity. I'm sure by the time I hit publish on this show, there's going to be another transaction elsewhere, because that's how it happens in Miami land, right? I remember when they moved from 3 to 12 and back to 6, and what a day that was. If I would not at all be surprised if this ends up being another experience like that, and there's a couple of shoes that fall shortly after. But at least now the Dolphins have the clarity on the financing element of this, what they're saving. $7 million in cash. So they offload Jalen, they offload Jonnu, they pay $3 million of Jalen's salary. So those two guys combined, there's still a savings. And then you bring back Minkah Fitzpatrick to fill what's going to be presumably a pretty big role in your secondary. So that's all the parts from an asset perspective. There's a Jonnu Smith conversation about what tight end looks like. We don't know it. There's a cornerback room question. We don't know what that's going to look like, because they've been interested in acquiring players at that position. What I wish I could put into words the fever dream that was this morning. From a sitting down, planning your day, have a whole bunch of stuff planned for Monday content, big day of the week, high traffic day, to the first shoe dropping, and then the second shoe dropping, and then the third shoe dropping. And it was enough to make your head spin. If you lived it in real time on the timeline, I'm sure you felt the same way. If you're only catching up and you're hearing what I have to say, God bless. I hope I can do the justice that you need. But let's talk about Minkah Fitzpatrick as the player that's coming back. And the poetry here is just incredible, right? This is Minkah Fitzpatrick. This was a guy who spurned the Dolphins in year one of a rebuild, as he didn't like the plan for his utilization. And you could tell there was some concerns about the competitive direction of the football team. And Minkah gets traded for a first-round draft choice in 2020 that ended up being the 18th overall pick. And now he's back. And I think when you look at what the Dolphins have in their secondary, when you consider Ife Melifonwu, what he's capable of, you also look at Ashton Davis as a high post type player. You look at the young guys, the Dante Traders and the Patrick McMorrises of the world. You had a lot of guys, and Ashton Davis is a guy who can play high in the post. Minkah, in the same way that Melifonwu has versatility from a coverage implementation standpoint, Minkah Fitzpatrick, from a coverage standpoint, is a very diverse player. Now, I think there's going to be a fine line to walk between weaponizing him in a way in which he wants to be used. Remember, he didn't like how the Dolphins wanted to use him in 2019, but then he went to Pittsburgh, and he didn't like the way the Pittsburgh used him because they left him too high and away from the football. He wanted to be close to the football. So this is, from a coverage perspective, I think a defensive weapon. Now, the tackling elements for Minkah, I think, is where you have some concerns about how consistent he is. And I think that's a blockade potentially from playing him low in support. There's been years where there's been double-digit missed tackle rates. In 2021, it was 12% missed tackle rate. It's been better in recent years, but I also think the way that Minkah has been used, he's kind of fallen into a happy medium from an implementation standpoint. The ball production's also been down. He has one interception in the last 2 seasons, Minkah does. but he played all 17 games last year. He is coming off a year in which he played 1,083 snaps. He missed 7 games in 2023, but it's been 939 or more snaps in every other year since. So this has been a pretty durable player. He's 28 years old. He's going to turn 29 in November. He's due 15.5 this year and then more in 2026, but it's not guaranteed salary. So they're going to have a chance to see how it works with Minkah, and then you have an opportunity to potentially do a contract extension if things go well, and if things don't go well, there's an exit strategy, which you did not really have with the Jalen Ramsey contract other than to get out of the deal, right, that you gave him. And he, in the process, got himself a fresh raise. But for Minkah, Melifonwu, I think, is still your roam, box, low, hybrid linebacker, run support player. Minkah and Ashton Davis, I think, can both play high post. When you go 2 safeties, I think it's probably Minkah and Melifonwu are the 2 best players that you have, and Ashton Davis is the backup player to Minkah Fitzpatrick. And then you have these other less established guys who can come in and be a 3rd or 4th safety. You know, we'll see what happens between Elijah Campbell and Trader and McMorris and how that room shakes itself out. That's going to be a tough room to make a cut on because you probably look at that group and say, we probably have 6 we'd like to have. And now you have the ceiling player. And I remember we're going back to the draft and pre-draft process, and we're having conversations about Nicky Manwari. We're having conversations about Malachi Starks. And the conversation is if you could bump everybody else in the safety room down 1 spot, I'd really like what you have to offer. And they managed to achieve that as a part of this Jalen Ramsey offload. Now, there's other moving parts. There's other position rooms that have to be settled. Corner has to be settled. Tight end has to be settled. But knowing that it's Minkah, Iffy, Ashton Davis, one of your young guys, presumably in front of Elijah Campbell. And if it was me, I keep both the young guys, and I would have Campbell be the cap casualty. You know, he's not really a big cap guy, but he's going to be 30 years old this year. He's played like 200 defensive snaps. That room, you can go win some battles with. And then you look at the depth of the linebacker room, and I think that's where they've addressed the entirety of the spine of this defense with what they did with the investments and the body types and the styles of the defensive tackles in the middle. And you got healthy on the edge, and how long they stay healthy is an interesting conversation, right? But they addressed the spine because they went there. They got different depth players that are skill-specific players in KJ Britt and Willie Gay to be the backup linebacker types. And now they've completely gutted the safety room, and they just got the staple player. I think it's really fascinating how it all works out. I'm not going to sit here and guarantee that anything's going to happen, good, bad, or otherwise. But I see the vision here. I see the vision of what they're trying to achieve. And you took this bad situation that you put yourself in, right? And I think that's worth noting too, is the Dolphins did this to themselves with choosing to trade for Jalen Ramsey, choosing to give Jalen Ramsey contract 1, choosing to let Jalen Ramsey put your feet to the fire and give him contract 2, and then have whatever's happened this offseason, good, bad, and ugly behind the scenes has happened, right? My phone's blown up. Let me make sure this isn't another freaking trade. It's not a trade, at least yet. We'll see. We got another couple minutes left in the show. I think Minkah gives you slot flexibility that you also have with Iffy Melifonwu. There's coverage appeal. This is not the player that I want to live down in the box, but between the young guys that you have, Melifonwu, the linebackers, I think we can make this work, but it's dependent upon everything gelling. It's dependent on your young guys or your edge guys staying healthy, and it's dependent on what you add to the cornerback room. And now at least the first domino has fallen. You know what kind of cash budget you have because you know what you're saving. So we'll see. We'll see how quickly the next shoe drops, including the Dolphins reportedly exploring trades for a tight end to replace Jonnu Smith in that room.
The Nets finally trade Cam Johnson, and it's a blockbuster move.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast.
The Brooklyn Nets just traded Cam Johnson to the Denver Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr. and an unprotected 2032 first-round pick. So obviously a blockbuster trade there on the first day of free agency for the Nets. And they get rid of Cam Johnson, their top player from this past season, a guy who came over in that Kevin Durant trade from the Phoenix Suns and was sort of the last remnants of that deal and that kind of transitional period after the Nets moved off KD and Kyrie and we're in that limbo phase. Now they're going into the rebuild, and this is really a signifier that this is a full rebuild. I think we knew that with them making 5 first-round picks in this draft, but getting off CJ, they're all in on this, and they're really going, for the rebuild, at least for this past season and likely beyond. But initial reactions to the deal, I think it's a good deal for the Nets. I think it's a win for both sides. I think it's a good deal for Brooklyn. I think it's a good deal for Denver. Obviously, Denver looking to, bolster their wing rotation, get a little bit of a guy who's a little bit more of a veteran presence and a playoff upgrade over Michael Porter Jr. So they get that in Cam Johnson. They get off Porter Jr.'s salary, and they pay a 2032 first-round pick. And from the Nets' perspective, CJ's obviously a guy who has been a rumored trade guy for the last year, ever since they moved off Mikal Bridges, his twin, and sent him to the New York Knicks, got those first-round picks back from the Houston Rockets, and entered this rebuild. He's a guy for the last year. A lot of people thought he was going to be traded last offseason. A lot of people thought he was going to be traded at the deadline, and the Nets held on to him. And, I reported extensively on the trade, rumblings surrounding CJ at the deadline. And everything I had heard was that the Nets had a really steep asking price. They weren't making calls. They were taking calls, and they weren't even really taking calls too seriously because the asking price was reportedly 2 first-round picks. That's apparently what they wanted for CJ, but they were content to keep him. And now, they do 2 things in this deal. We've obviously know that salary dumps are a route they've been going using their cap space. So in this deal, it is a salary dump taking on Michael Porter Jr.'s contract, but it's also, they're getting a 2032 unprotected first-round pick for CJ. And I said, they were asking for apparently for 2 first-round picks at the trade deadline. You might say, they got off of that. They didn't get 2 first-round picks to the deadline, and now they have to settle for 1 first-round pick. But this first-round pick is an unprotected 2032 pick from a Nuggets team where you have no idea what they're going to be in that year. So an unprotected pick that far out is the equivalent, if not more, than a lot of 2 first-round pick packages that you're going to get from other teams where they might be heavily protected. They might be from teams who are going to be really good. They might be, in the near future from teams who are going to be playoff contenders. In Denver's case, in 2032, Nikola Jokic is going to be 36 years old. Have no idea if he's going to be playing at, an elite level at that stage. We don't even know if he's going to be playing in the NBA at that point. There's obviously a lot of rumblings, people question Jokic is a different kind of cat, and people don't even know how long he's going to want to play in the NBA. So we're talking about, 7 years from now, there's a very good chance maybe Nikola Jokic isn't playing in the NBA anymore, or he isn't playing for the Nuggets. And at that point, who are the Nuggets? You have no idea, but they were willing to, pay that unprotected 2032 first-round pick in order to, try to maximize the window now around Nikola Jokic, and the Nets having the cap space to take on Michael Porter Jr. in this trade. And, having an appetite, obviously, to get an asset like that 2032 first-round pick, they take it. And I think it's a good deal for the Nets. Is it, an outstanding home run deal? No, they didn't get multiple first-round picks for CJ, but I think this is about as good of a pick and an asset as you're going to get in this trade. So that's good business, I think, by the Nets. I think it's also good business by the Nuggets. And when you look at Michael Porter Jr. and what the salary situation with him and CJ both have 2 years left on their contract. But MPJ has significantly more money on his deal. He is under contract for $38 million next season and then $41 million in 2026-27. CJ's at $21 million this season and $23 million. So the Nets add, a significant amount of a chunk of money to their books this season and next. But with the amount of cap space they have, with the amount of financial flexibility they have, this is what affords them, the ability to do that. This is why we talked about, CJ, I said, obviously being speculated as a trade guy for how, over the last year. Also last season with the Nets trading Dennis Schroeder and Dorian Finney-Smith a little bit later than people expected. Why did Sean Marks trade them later and hold on to them? Because he was prioritizing getting back expiring contracts in those deals. He did that in the Dennis Schroeder trade, brought back DeAnthony Melton expiring. In the DFS trade, brought back DeAngelo Russell's expiring. And that, allowed them to get this cap space and maintain that cap flexibility this season and into the future, this offseason and into the future. And with that allowed them to make the deal with the Atlanta Hawks, where they got Terrence Mann in the number 22 pick, which they used on Drake Powell. And also it allows them to have additional, even more cap space to take on a guy like MPJ and get a 2032 unprotected first-round pick, which is a really good asset. And the Nets are just loaded from a draft perspective right now. This is really them. They lead the NBA in first-round picks over the next 7 years, tradable first-round picks, all that. But they have picks in the short term, the medium term, in the long term, some of which are protected, some of which are unprotected. So they're really diversifying their pick stash. And this is a pick that, people are going to say, some fans might say, this is forever from now, 2032. What are we going to draft in 2032? This is a third grader or whatever. But that's a valuable pick down the line. It's also that value that it has could be impactful in trade negotiations if the Nets are to try to package this and expedite their timeline anytime between now and between 2032. And that pick, the closer you get, it could grow in value. You don't know what's going to happen. So it's a good asset. I think it's as good of an asset as the Nets are going to get in a trade for Cam Johnson. And then they also get Michael Porter Jr.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Brook Lopez is an LA Clipper.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast.
The LA Clippers have acquired former All-Star Brook Lopez and NBA champion Brook Lopez to a 2-year, $18 million deal. So I'm going to be talking about what my reaction is, what he brings, and what this means for the age of our team and Yannick. So my first reaction, I'm watching all the trades or all the moves on Twitter. It's free agency frenzy. You know what I'm saying? I got shams on post notifications, and all these moves are happening. Clint Capella's going to Houston, and I mentioned him a bunch of times this summer about somebody that we can get as a backup for Zoo. Bobby Portis was taken off the market a couple days ago, re-signing with the Bucks. And so I'm just waiting. What are the Clippers going to do? Are we going to trade for a power forward? Are we going to go for Nickeil Alexander-Walker like so many fans want with the mid-level exception? Or are we going to go for that backup big? And lo and behold, we come out with the 2-year, $18 million for Brook Lopez. Now, I honestly love it. I love it because Brook Lopez, first off, just a personal thing for me, I was advocating for Brook Lopez being a top 5 center and one of the most underrated players in the league my freshman year of high school, 2013, when the Nets first moved to Brooklyn. That was his only All-Star appearance, but I was telling people Brook Lopez is nice. And nobody was everybody would just laugh at me Brook Lopez. What are you talking about, dude? It's Clipper and Laker fans don't want to hear about no Brook Lopez, especially if we're talking about the Nets. It's all about D. Will and ISO Joe, not no Brook Lopez. But Brook Lopez was kind of like that third guy, and he was so good then. He was really good the next year, and then he got injured. And then I don't think he was really ever the same after the 2014 injury that he got. I forget exactly what kind of injury that was. But, he still averaged 17 points a game on a playoff team in 2015. And then they sucked those last 2 years in Brooklyn. He averaged 21 points a game both years. And then he went to the Lakers for 1 year. So this is not his first time being in LA. He went for 1 year. And I remember thinking then, Brook Lopez is not very good anymore. He was averaging 13 points. Laker fans did not like him. He was their starting center who averaged 4 rebounds. And that's something I have to say he's never been great at. So if people want to know, is Brook Lopez going to be a great rebounder? No. But here's the main takeaway. When he went to Milwaukee, he kind of reinvented himself as this pick and pop big from 3. Now, he used to always be a great shooter from 18 feet, but he's one of the prime examples of guys adapting to the modern NBA who are already good shooters and just can extend the range a little bit. I think if you're already a good shooter, it's not a big deal to extend your range a little bit at all. Now, there are some people that say like the mid-range is a different shot than the 3. Correct, but we're talking about guys not shooting threes at all that can hit 18, 20 footers. Of course, they can extend their range. Brook Lopez, though, is definitely someone that we have to give a lot of credit for because not only did he extend his range, he's a guy who was hitting from way downtown and was able to average 37% from 3 in 2023, 36.5 the year they were the number 1 seed in the East in 2019, his first year with the Bucks. Now that percentage dropped in 2020. He only shot 31% from 3 that year. The year they won the championship, he shot 34%, so not too great. But then 36, 37, 37, and 37. So essentially, he's shot 37% the last 3 years, with last year coming at 37.3 on 5 attempts. You know what this means? That he can be a pick and pop big. When was the last time we had that? Serge Ibaka. And he essentially, as a Clipper, never panned out because of his back. This is the best backup we've had since Hartenstein. No doubt about it. Brook Lopez may have not been good enough to be a starting center. Everyone's talking about he's old. He's going to get, he's so slow. He's a drop coverage merchant. Okay, so is Zoo to some degree. And he's an actual rim protector. This is a guy who, maybe not as much anymore, but he was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting 2 seasons ago. Second in the league behind Jaren Jackson Jr. and was all defensive first team in 2023. Now, yes, he fell off defensively in 2024. You know what I'm saying? We saw in the playoffs, he actually averaged 18 points on 59, 43.5 splits. That's 59% from the field and 43.5% from 3 in that series against the Indiana Pacers in 2024. Now, I will not lie to the people. I was going through some stuff and moving and during the series this year against the Pacers, so I only watched game 1. I'll go back and watch the other ones. But he did not have a very good game in that game. Miles Turner was killing him in the pick and pop. But again, based on their drop coverage scheme, pick and pop, you're conceding to Miles Turner. So that's more about the scheme. The point is this. While he might not be a starting center anymore, this is a guy who was second in Defensive Player of the Year voting just 2 years ago and averaged 2 blocks a game last season. So he still is a pretty good shot blocker. He's going to be coming off the bench. Do you know when the last time Brook Lopez was a bench player? Never. He started 75 games out of 82 his rookie year. He's never been a bench player in his entire career. So to say that he's not going to have anything to bring off the bench, I think is crazy. He's going to have some bad games. He's going to have some games where he looks old and slow, but he has a high basketball IQ. He has championship experience. He can knock down pick and pop threes with James Harden, whoever else our backup point guard is, or Bogey. He gives us a different element that we don't have with Zoo. Now, I don't think he's, just because he can pick and pop at threes, he's better than Zoo, or should be playing more than him, or should be closing games in crunch time, unless he's going crazy. I don't know if they can play together because it might be too slow, but you never know. Maybe we experiment. He can pick and pop, but it might just be too slow. But I'm really happy about this, guys. I think Clint Capella is not better than Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez was still starting on a playoff team last year, and you know what's great about Brook Lopez? Even though he had some injuries, in that stretch of his career, 2012 and 2014, last 10 years, he's been, I'll read you the games played since 2014-15. 72, 73, 75, 74, 81, 68 out of 72, 70 out of 72. 2022 is when he was injured. He had a big injury that year, 13 games, but he actually ended up playing in the playoffs and started all 12 games. And then 2023, 78, and then 79 and 80 the last couple of years. I mean, I think this is a home run. The only thing is $9 million a year. Yeah, how much money do we have left over at the mid-level exception? Probably like $5 or $6 million to give out. Nickeil Alexander-Walker went to the Hawks, so that's not going to happen. But I really think we needed a backup center more than point-of-attack defense and another guard. I really do. This is huge, in my opinion. Just not like a huge thing for the league, but really good for our team. I'm excited. And yes, partially it's my bias because I loved Brook Lopez in Brooklyn, but that was a while ago. I didn't really care for him that much with the Bucks because he was a different player. He wasn't like throw it down in the post and get a bucket. But here's the thing. We have that option. If he's guarded by like someone that's ass or like so much smaller than him, no one's in the NBA's ass. I should never say that. But someone that's not good defensively and is a smaller guy, we can throw it down to him. He has that skill. I think this is a big, like just a very solid move for us. I'm excited. I'm excited to hear Brook Lopez's deep ass voice talking to like Law Murray and Joey Lynn and just giving us some great quotes too. He's a pretty funny guy.
Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year.
The Dallas Mavericks reportedly are signing DeAngelo Russell. We're talking about NBA free agency. First day NBA free agency where teams can actually talk to other players from other teams. The Mavs get DeAngelo Russell reportedly, and we're waiting to see if they'll make another move, but a bunch of moves were made across the NBA, including, let's start with the Houston Rockets, because I think they made some big moves today. Oh, let's start with the Denver Nuggets, actually, because I think they made the biggest move, is they traded Michael Porter Jr. to the Brooklyn Nets for Cam Johnson. Brooklyn also gets a 2032 first-round pick. That is going to be a good pick probably for them. But the swap of Michael Porter Jr. and Cam Johnson does more for the Nuggets than just get them Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr. It also opens up their full non-taxpayer MLE. So they have $14 million to offer somebody else now, which I think is a big deal for them.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the signs of the night, of this first night of free agency is just a lot of these West teams just slowly starting to get a little better here and there. And with Denver, they were in a weird spot last year, but like you said, like I love Cam Johnson. I think he's going to feast on these 3-point shots playing with Jokic and Murray and Aaron Gordon and stuff. So I think that's going to be great for him. I think he's going to be a great fit. They're going to get Bruce Brown back on like a minimum deal while still keeping that 14 mil exception open. They're going to bring one or two guys back or in with that exception. So they're going to be a little bit deeper, which is what they needed to be. And so they're going to be scary. It's like them. They took a step tonight. I think you look at Houston and you look at the Kevin Durant trade, and then it's like all these other moves and stuff that they make of keeping Jabari locked in. They traded for they signed Dorian Finney-Smith, our guy. They signed Clint Capella, and it's like, all right, y'all just keep on getting better. I've loved their off season. I think they're just hitting it out of the park, and they still have so many of the pieces to go after the big trade too if they wanted to, whether it's a LeBron or probably a Giannis.
That would be nuts. But yeah, you look at what the Rockets have right now. We're probably starting like Fred VanVleet, Amen Thompson, Kevin Durant, Jabari Smith Jr., Alperen Sengun. Then you got a bench with Tari Eason, Dorian, Steven Adams, Clint Capella, Jayshawn Tate, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd. Like they've got a pretty deep team, plus a top heavy team as well on there. The Rockets have definitely gotten better, and that's one that I look at and go, man, they do still have picks, and they have Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepherd, Tari Eason, like some younger players that you could send in a trade to. That man, like that's scary.
They're just starting to. I just think that they've solidified that. I love my tiers here. That when you have OKC in tier 1, I think they're starting to solidify themselves as tier 2, and like pushing. For me, I think they're starting
like them
to move.
In Denver.
Yeah, they're like moving themselves up from that next group, and then Denver obviously got better. Spurs getting Cornette was an improvement. I don't think it pushes them up to. I'm just talking about teams that are.
But the Fox move from last year, they didn't really get a lot of Fox and Wemby.
Yeah.
So
Dylan Harper's good. Like he's going to come off the bench. So that they did get better with that. Adding Carter Bryant too. I thought they had a great draft. So they're going to be better this year. I think personally, Portland got better with Drew. Now, I don't think it pushes them up to like the top 6 and stuff, but if we're just talking about teams that got better, I think Portland did get better adding Drew. And is it weird that I think the Suns got better even though they lost Durant?
Yeah, it's very weird.
Okay.
What did they do to get better? Who are the players they brought in that are?
I don't know. I just feel like the combination of Green, Brooks, Malawach, Mark Williams, Rasheer Fleming, like it's just so many of the stuff didn't work last year, and so many of the
They got deeper.
Yeah, they got deeper, but maybe they're a to be determined team. But I think when you're in the Mavs seat and you're a win now team, the biggest thing I'm always looking at is who are the top 6 teams in the conference. You're fighting for the top 6. Ever since they created the participation tournament there with the play-in, now it's not the top 8, it's the top 6. They can avoid that whole tournament. Who's in that top 6? You're locked in with OKC. You're locked in with Houston. You're locked in with Denver. So what's the other 3 spots? Minnesota loses Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They're kind of banking on some like internal improvement so far right now in free agency. So they're kind of like a to be determined. What's going to happen with the Lakers? I mean,
the Lakers are kind of at this very moment, the Lakers are a mess because you look at what they have and it's Luka, Reeves, LeBron, Rui, and Maxey. That's like their starting 5 probably. Now there's a lot of rumors that they could get Ayton. Ayton's got the same agent as Luka, and
Ayton and LaRavia. That's
bought
bringing
out.
LeBron back.
Then they've got Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, the Abdou Thiero guy that they drafted, Jordan Goodwin, Shake Milton, Bronny James.
Hey, I really like Thiero, by the way.
Athletic guy, but that's a mess of a team right now. And LeBron doing his whole "we've got to get better" thing. I want to win titles kind of deal in the media too.
Yeah, he's doing his crap.
They lost Dorian for Jake LaRavia as of right now. Could be a Ayton move there, but
yeah, the Grizzlies are to be determined. Like, where are they at? They lose Desmond Bane. They add Ty Jerome and KCP basically, since they're probably going to buy out, Cole Anthony and stuff. So I feel like that is a downgrade from Desmond Bane. I think Desmond Bane's pretty good. So, so they're kind of like a weird thing. I don't know what to think of the Clippers.
The Grizzlies, the Grizzlies added more depth, which was like not their problem before too, right?
Yeah.
Like they took Desmond Bane and spread him out into a couple players. And you're like, okay, you already had too many guys that you couldn't figure out how to play last year. And then health is obviously their big thing. But Grizzlies.
Yeah, so like the Clippers adding Brook Lopez, probably Chris Paul, and then it's like, all right, I guess they got better. I mean,
I think they did. I think if they do get Chris Paul, I think that adds another playmaker that they
they're
didn't
definitely
really have.
the oldest team in the league, right?
For sure. And it's obviously all going to be up to health. Brook Lopez kind of adds a sneaky, like shooting big option that they haven't had in a long time.
Yeah, true. I mean, he's better than what their backup bigs were before. So I say that to say, like, I think there's only like 3 teams there outside. I'm not even talking about Dallas. When you're looking across the board right now in the West and you're like, all right, who am I like fighting for one of those top 6 spots? I don't see how you can't have Dallas in the top 6 right now. So just with everything considered, I think you can't convince me right now that like Golden State, the Clippers, Grizzlies, Lakers, you can't convince me all those teams are for sure ahead of them. I think Dallas is in that 3 to 6 range in the West right now.
Between the Lakers, the Warriors, and like the Mavs, like, would you rather have no centers or no guards?
No centers. You need guards.
Well, the Mavs are the ones with no guards. They have all centers. The Lakers, but the Lakers and Warriors don't have any centers. The Warriors lost Kevon Looney. Lakers didn't have any centers anyway, and Jackson Hayes doesn't look like he's coming back. You'd have to be really high on the Spurs, really high on the Clippers' health. The Lakers, you think that they've got to move up their sleeve, maybe the Timberwolves to do something too for you to really think the Mavs are outside that top 6.
I mean, the thing for the Lakers though is, hey, you've seen, like, does Luka bring a floor, right? Like, we've seen Luka do this before, where he takes some rosters and there is a floor for a Luka team that they're not going to go beneath this amount of wins. Especially, I mean, are we going to get a stairs Astaire's running shot of Luka and Slovenia?
We've seen Luka teams miss the play-in.
Okay, well, but okay.
I'm just saying.
And whenever LeBron's like PR crap's done, we'll see what happens with that.
Well,
but,
you know they're both gonna miss games. Same thing for the Mavs guys.
Yeah.
Kyrie's already gonna miss a bunch of games. Is it bad for Joe Dumars that we haven't mentioned the Pelicans one time this whole conversation?
dude, I just tweeted this out because I was going through every single roster right now. Shout out to Spotrac who puts those like updated rosters in so fast. Guys, if you haven't, just go look at New Orleans' roster. It's one of the most entertaining. Like, sign me up for that Hard Knocks. Like the whole thing with the Pelicans. Consider everything: the personalities, off the court stuff, on the court stuff, all of it. And you're like, how is this all on one team? I don't know how this is going to fit.
You obviously have Zion. Okay, you have Jordan Poole. You bring in. You got DeJounte Murray, another like personality. Jordan Poole personality. You're bringing in Derek Queen. That's a personality too, in his own way.
Him and Jeremiah Fears, though. I mean, these are two like lottery type of that you're bringing in that are high draft picks, and that you've invested into it with Fears and stuff too. But no, keep going. There's other people.
Yeah, you got Trey Murphy. You're bringing in Kevon Looney now. Looney and Poole getting reunited.
Looney barely talks anyway, and Looney's gonna come in as the adult in the room, like
what is going
I just
on
left
here?
Golden State for.
Oh, and then Herb Jones is gonna sit in the corner silently. Just the whole. I don't know what he's.
Yeah, you got these two wings and Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. You still have Alvarado, who's like, hey, can I still do my like sneak up on people trick? Is that still available? It's just like what a interesting roster they have, and yeah. So anyway, West teams are.
If they got better,
I don't know.
From the
I
Brandon
just
Ingram, Zion, like CJ McCollum days.
I have them in my to be determined of what is this? What is going on here? But it'll at least be fun. They're definitely going to be in my league pass top 5. Like they are a lock for that. But no, it's a good night for Dallas. They needed a stopgap point guard to fill in for Kyrie. Once it felt like, hey, they're probably not going to go swing in for a trade for a bigger guard like a Kobe White or someone like that. This is the next best option if Chris Paul's not going to come here in free agency. You go out, you take the swing on a DeAngelo Russell and say, hey, we'll take the value of D'Lo at $5.5 million for the next 2 years. And I think it's a great move for Dallas. They got their guy for that. Now we'll see if they do a smaller move to open up a roster spot for another ball handler.
Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started.
Michigan football recruiting is on a heater. Sharon Moore's killing it.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines.
Huge news for Michigan. The hype started growing on Saturday with morning when Steve Wiltfong, we're gonna have to deal with Zuri barking a lot this show. There's fireworks in the background and she loves those things. Which there's fireworks happening on this show. No, nice segue. I mean, it was one of those things where Steve Wiltfong, who is the best of the best out there, put in and I say that knowing Steve personally, by the way. He was instrumental in me being in this business. But he put in the prediction for Carter Meadows to end up choosing Michigan, much to the chagrin of those in Columbus who were so confident coming out of the official visit. Oh, they're going to spend money. It's a need. Why would you choose the team that's been cheating? Right? Okay. But alas, they did not win. Carter Meadows ends up shutting it down at 4 p.m. today, choosing Michigan. Yet another elite edge rusher, number 6 overall by On3, number 34 overall at 24/7 Sports. It just an absolute game-changing type of commitment. I haven't looked at, I know CBS does its own little thing, but where it does like commitment impact score. I guarantee this one will be considered game changer. Now, he is, for being a 5-star, still a little bit of a project, right? Like, he is not a plug and play. He's got some room to grow, right? He's 6 foot 6.5 and 225 pounds. So obviously he's got room to grow in that body. Now, he is more ready to go than like Lugard Adekpayi, who has kind of a similar body type, or at least he did at that time. But I think that there's a much higher ceiling for Carter Meadows. And it also helps to like, when you have some of the outstanding prospects that Michigan has out there, it helps to get those types of guys. And I'm not just talking about the other, I mean, there's others, especially in the DMV or in the surrounding region. Of course, we think of Savion Hyder, but like, now Michigan has 3 of the 4 from the picture, right? Like, that was the thing when people were coming out of Victor's Weekend. They had a 4 linemen in a picture with one who was committed, and Tariq Boney, and it was like, can they go 4 for 4? Well, now they've got 3 of 4. They've got, obviously Boney was already committed. They added Titan Davis. Now they've got Carter Meadows, and then the other one is South Carolina native Julian Walker. Can they get him? I feel like that's trending in a very positive direction. That would give Michigan 4 edge rushers in the class. Obviously, Titan Davis is not an edge rusher. Mikhail Blade would be the other one that is in there. But they are just absolutely dominating when it comes to trench recruiting at this point. Now, yeah, you'd love to still see a little bit more from that. I don't want to say from the offensive side of the ball. You still want to see, because like, it's still going to finish as like a class that's like you just salivate over. But it's kind of surprising that there aren't more that, like the Felix Ojos and the Kelvin Obot. I mean, they both visited, but it still feels like both will end elsewhere. It's kind of surprising, but nonetheless, to be able to get those types of edge rushers, to get a Carter Meadows, to go out and say, like, we're going to go get one of the best in the country. We're going to get a guy that is absolutely going to be a star here, because we've got the track record of development. I mean, that's huge. Like, this was a conversation that I was having with I think it was my brother in metal, Michael Wolf, that I was talking about with this on Friday. The thing about Michigan is if you're, like we talked about Michigan being a little bit of a developmental program to some degree, but you don't want to stay in that world, right? Like, I know it's weird to say Michigan's a developmental program, but like, there are the schools that have just long gotten the 5 stars, right? That's just what they do, right? Like, and most of them have gone through bad periods as well, right? Like, Texas and Alabama have had down periods. Ohio State kind of hasn't, for going back to like the 1950s. I mean, aside from maybe like a disappointing year or two, Ohio State's just continued to be elite. But Michigan losses notwithstanding, of course. But Michigan's a little bit more developmental. That's why you see some classes that end up being more 15th to 20th. I'm not saying it's like they're not like Rutgers out there. But the thing is when you're in that spot, you don't want to stay there. What you want to do is be able to land guys like this. And then they also have to produce and become like those types of guys that everyone's talking about in the end, and go to the NFL, be a first-round pick, and then you can kind of consistently get those top-tier players, right? Like, Ohio State was starting to get the wide receivers in the tail end of the 2010s, right? Like, the latter half, but like, they were still very much a running football team, but they still were they were really getting elite wide receivers, but they weren't as elite as the ones they're getting now. So that's what you do. You get to a place where it's like, hey, we churn out defensive linemen. We churn out edge rushers. You're going to want to come here. We churn out defensive tackles. This is where you're going to want to come. If you're a 3-star, we're going to turn you into a first-round pick. That's what we do. And then you start to get the higher-end talent. and then you just start to become a little bit more of a mainstay. That was kind of the problem with Michigan State. Michigan State's clearly a developmental program, right? And Mark D'Antonio started being able to get really good, started to really develop. But then when he started to have really good classes, they didn't come together, and that was where things started to fall down. Michigan's had some of that problem itself in the relatively early Jim Harbaugh era.